Good morning. It's afternoon, as in because it's crossed 12, but I always make it a point to wish my students morning every time I see them for the first time. So it's a new day, therefore, it's morning for me. So, good morning. We have gathered here to listen and be enlightened and interact for the second lecture of the first online lecture series organized by the Department of English, Katwa College. And today our guest speaker is Dr. Tania Chakravarti. So first I will introduce the formal bio note, and then I can get a little emotional about her. So, educated at Presidency College and Calcutta University, Tania Chakravarti has a PhD on gender representations in the fiction of Ernest Hemingway under the supervision of Dr. Shanjukta Dasgupta. She is the Dean of Students' Welfare at Diamond Harbour Women's University, Shorisha, West Bengal. Formerly Associate Professor and Head, Department of English at Sri Shikshayatan College, Kolkata, she was concurrently guest lecturer in the English Department, Calcutta University, from 2009 to 2016, where she taught selected texts in two papers, Gender and Literature and American Literature. She was selected to visit the US to participate in a 3-week academic group project titled Strengthening and Widening the Scope of American Studies, the US Experience. In 2010, as part of the prestigious International Visitor Leadership Program, IVLP, her areas of academic interest include gender studies, American literature, and literature of the diaspora. She is Assistant Secretary, Executive Committee of the Intercultural Poetry and Performance Library, IPPL. She is the first and former coordinator and steering committee member of the American Literature and Culture Interest Group, ALSIG, which holds pedagogical and cultural programs aided by the US Consulate General, Kolkata. Her other interests are traveling, photography, and cooking. And now comes the emotional part, that she has been my teacher. Therefore, it's a pleasure and a nostalgia. And, in our Oriental concept, the Guru Shishya Parampara. So today, my students are going to listen to my teacher. Therefore, it's a beautiful experience. And over to Dr. Tania Chakrabarti.
Good afternoon. I will also begin with a formal thank you. I wish to thank the patron, Dr. Nirmalindu Sarkar, Principal of Katwa College, Dr. Anindo Bandopadhyay, Head of the Department of English, and the two young joint conveners, Ms. Indrani Ray and Mr. Dulal Sarkar, both assistant professors in the Department of English. Like Indrani, I could also go a little informal because Indrani Ray, as she said, has been my student, not just a student, but one of my favorite students. I remember her scoring the highest in her class. And interestingly, she was not just a student, she later became a colleague because she joined Shikshayatan. And another detail that I would add, it is plays that brought us close together. Because every year at the function that we used to have, the grand annual function, I used to direct plays with my senior colleagues. And Indrani used to act in the lead roles. And she used to take the male roles and play them with aplomb. And I'm happy that I'll be presenting a lecture on Tennessee Williams, a playwright who was my favorite when I was an undergraduate and a postgraduate student. The title of my paper is Tennessee Williams and His Vision of Time. I mean, the title could be modified a little as Visions of Time. So, Tennessee Williams and His Vision of Time in the Glass Menagerie. I intend to briefly introduce the playwright and his works. I will speak about Tennessee Williams as a Southern writer and thereby analyze his attitude to the past. For students who are new to American literature and culture for that matter, you see there is no one American culture. American culture has never been homogeneous. The South had a different culture because the South had aristocracy, the South had feudalism, the South had segregation. So when you listen to me today, just keep this at the back of your mind. That will help you understanding the text. And finally, I will speak about the Glass Menagerie as a memory play. So I will begin now with my talk, and I think I should start sharing the slides. Are the slides visible?
Yes.
Okay. Right. So, Williams and his vision of time. Tennessee Williams was born Thomas Lanier Williams on March 26, 1911, in Columbus, Mississippi, and he was the second of Cornelius and Edwina Williams's three children. His father was a traveling salesman, a man who loved his work more than he loved parenting. Williams was raised predominantly by his mother, who was shy and quiet, and with a tremendous attachment to her children. And since the father was often away from home, he lived the first 10 years of his life in his maternal grandparents' home. His grandfather was an Episcopal rector, a liberal and progressive individual, and Williams, as a child, was rather delicate, plagued with severe childhood diseases. And this kept him back from attending regular school. So instead, he read profusely in his grandfather's library. His childhood in Mississippi was pleasant and happy, and contrasted with his atmosphere of genteel culture. The greatest shock came to him when the family made a move. Life for him changed drastically. His father accepted a position in a shoe factory in St. Louis and moved the family to an ugly tenement building. You can look at the building in the slide, and the Williamses, they had just one apartment here. So the carefree nature of his boyhood was suddenly lost in this new urban home. The cramped apartment and the ugliness of city life used to make him miserable. In school, his classmates also began ridiculing him for his southern accent, and he was unable to find acceptance. As a result, Williams turned inward and started to write. His father was suddenly at home most of the time, and so the home also became a tense place to live in. It was just a wrong marriage, Williams wrote later about his parents. And it was here in St. Louis that Williams's slightly older sister, Rose, began to manifest erratic behavior. Eventually, in 1943, she underwent a surgery, a prefrontal lobotomy, and was institutionalized for the rest of her life. The family situation, however, did offer fuel for the playwright's art. His mother became the model for the somewhat foolish but strong Amanda Wingfield. His father was the prototype for the aggressive Big Daddy in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, and Rose became the model for the shy and quiet Laura Wingfield in the Glass Menagerie. But why just mother and sister? Williams also put a part of himself in Tom Wingfield in the Glass Menagerie. After finishing high school in 1929, Tennessee Williams enrolled at the University of Missouri to study journalism. At the university, he also continued to write, and he became drawn to alcohol. He continued going to the University of Missouri for 3 years, and then he failed at the Reserve Officers Training Corps, or the ROTC. It's a kind of a military training. So after the third year, his father thought that he had done the best that could be done for a son. His father took him out of the university and got him a position at the International Shoe Company factory. You can look at the picture of the International Shoe Company. So imagine a young undergraduate boy being taken out of the university and put to work. So he hated this position and found solace in creativity. He wrote poems and stories after work at night. His mother recalled that sometimes she would find her son sprawled on the bed, even without having removed his shoes. He would be that tired. And eventually, depression also took its toll, and he suffered a nervous breakdown. And later, Tennessee Williams would classify this time as the most miserable 2 years of his life. He recuperated in Memphis, and then, he was there with his grandfather who had moved to Memphis after retirement. And after recuperation, Williams returned to St. Louis and he connected with several poets studying at Washington University. So this was a second university for him. He continued writing, had some of his earlier works produced. He won $25 because he sent one of his poems for a poetry competition. And then he sent a play, but that came, and he came fourth. So that was not selected as the best play. So he got angry. Again, changed the university, went over to the University of Iowa in 1937. So it was from the University of Iowa from where he graduated the following year. And after leaving Iowa, he drafted around the country picking up odd jobs. What were these odd jobs like? He worked as clerk, he worked as lift boy, he worked as telephone operator, he worked as caretaker on a chicken ranch, he worked as waiter. So he kept on collecting experiences, and this would also help him in understanding life and become a good playwright. At 28, in 1939, Williams moved to New Orleans, where he changed his name, and now Thomas Williams became Tennessee Williams. Why did he choose Tennessee? Because he knew that his father and his family hailed from there. One of his plays earned him $100 this time from a group theatre writing contest. And this led him to an agent, Audrey Wood, who would become his friend and advisor. In 1939, with the help of Wood, Williams was awarded $1,000 grant from the Rockefeller Foundation in recognition of his play Battle of Angels. In 1940, Williams's play Battle of Angels debuted in Boston. Unfortunately, the play flopped. Williams revised it and brought it back as Orpheus Descending. This was 1957, much later. And this was also made into the movie The Fugitive Kind, which starred Marlon Brando. In 1945, the Glass Menagerie opened on Broadway. 2 years later, I'll show you a list of his major plays. 2 years later, A Streetcar Named Desire opened, surpassing his previous success, and secured his status as one of the country's best playwrights. The play also earned Williams a Drama Critics Award and his first Pulitzer Prize. His subsequent work brought more praise. The hits of this period included Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, Camino Real, Sweet Bird of Youth. The 1960s were a difficult time for Williams. His work received poor reviews, and increasingly the playwright turned to alcohol and drugs as coping mechanisms. In 1969, his brother had to hospitalize him. Upon his release, he got back right to work. He churned out several new plays as well as memoirs in 1975, and this told the story of his life and his hardships. But you see, he never really escaped his addictions. Surrounded by bottles of wine and drugs and pills, Williams died in his suite at the Hotel Ellis in New York on February 25th, 1983. I think this should be enough because I have to go on to the play. The Glass Menagerie, Williams's first successful play, premiered in Chicago in 1944. It had a shaky start, but it was championed by critics Ashton Stevens and Claudia Cassidy. With their recommendation, the Glass Menagerie opened on Broadway in the Playhouse Theatre on March 31st, 1945, and played there until June 29, 1946. It then moved to the Royal Theatre from July 1st to 1946 until its closing on August 3rd the same year. The show was directed by Eddie Dowling and Margot Jones. I have also put in a little picture. The cast for the opening night had Eddie Dowling, the director, as Tom Wingfield, Laurette Taylor as Amanda Wingfield, Julie Hayden as Laura Wingfield, and Anthony Ross as Jim O'Connor. And the play won the New York Drama Critics Circle Award in 1945. Another slide where I will show you the revivals, including the Broadway revivals. 1965, Brooks Atkinson, Broadway. 75, Circle in the Square Theatre, Broadway. 83, Eugene O'Neill Theatre, Broadway. 89, this time in Manchester. 19